wasted day, let's begin with something that most men overlook because it's right in front of thimming her curve. It's not just about physical attraction. It's not just about aesthetics. It's psychological power wrapped in physical form. And if you fail to understand that, you will be influenced by it without even knowing why. See, what we often call curves is more than hips, more than a silhouette, more than what fabric clings to. Her body language, her posture, the way she walks into a room, it all carries silent messages, messages that bypass logic and speak directly to the subconscious mind of a man. And those messages, they aren't random. They are ancient. They are hardwired into your nervous system. Biologically speaking, men are attracted to curves because they symbolize fertility, health, and youth. The waist to hip ratio is something your mind is scanning for, even when you don't realize it. That attraction is not a weakness. That pull you feel, it's instinctual. It's wired into your biology. But here's where it gets deep. Just because it's instinct doesn't mean it's wise to follow it blindly. You see, the power of her curve is not in how it looks. It's in how it makes you feel. It calls something out of you: desire, curiosity, temptation, even insecurity. That's why some men obsess. That's why others run. Her body is a language. And if you don't know how to interpret it, you will be at the mercy of it. You'll be drawn into dynamics you don't understand, conversations you don't control, and feelings you can't name. Not because she's manipulating you, but because you haven't studied yourself. Let's talk psychology. A confident woman knows her body is a form of power. She knows the sway of her hips is hypnotic. She knows eye contact paired with posture is more commanding than words. And the moment she sees that you're transfixed, she knows who holds the frame. But here's the twisting: her curve isn't just something she uses. It's something she's used to being judged by. From a young age, society tells her that her worth is tied to her body. The magazines, the filters, the comments all tell her that her value increases or decreases based on how desirable she appears. So for many women, their body becomes their currency, and their curve becomes a tool of survival, not just seduction. That means what you're reacting to as a man isn't just beauty. It's years of training, defense, and emotional adaptation. But let's flip this. The curve is not just her tool. It becomes your test, a test of your discipline, your awareness, and your vision. If the sight of her body causes you to forget yours, your values, your goals, your intuition, then you've already lost. Because now her external form has overridden your internal compass. And that's exactly how empires fall. That's how kings lose kingdoms. By chasing forms that have no substance. You must understand the seat. There is nothing wrong with being attracted to her body. But when her body becomes your master, your logic will bow to your craving. That's how another wasted day is, how men fall into toxic cycles. That's how they end up loving women who don't love them back. Because they're not in love. They're in fixation. They're in fantasy. They're addicted to the dopamine rush that comes with proximity to beauty, rather than discerning whether that beauty is aligned with truth. Let me give you something practical. Next time you feel drawn to a woman's physical form, pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, not just what she looks like, but what is this reaction revealing about me? Is it admiration? Is it loneliness? Is it unresolved desire or suppressed emotion? Is it another wasted day? Is it a craving for connection that I bury beneath surface level interactions? This level of awareness is what separates men who are moved by women from men who are mastered by them. And here's another true thing. If a woman knows her curve can silence your voice, she won't listen to what you say. She'll listen to your reaction. And if your reaction is needy, distracted, or overly impressed, she won't see strength. She'll see susceptibility. And a woman cannot respect what she can overpower. So you must learn to of beauty without collapsing in front of it, to admire without obsessing, to notice without losing your sense of direction. The curve is not a trap, but for the man who lacks self-knowledge, it becomes one. So what's the insight? The curve isn't just physical. It's a reflection of psychological depth, both hers and yours. It reveals how you see women, how you see yourself, and what you truly believe you deserve. It challenges your mastery over your biology, your narrative, and your mission. And when you pass that test, when you can look at her beauty and remain rooted in your own, then and only then do you rise into the kind of masculinity that cannot be manipulated. Let's go deeper, because understanding her curve isn't just about how you perceive it. It's about what she's doing with it. And most men miss this entirely. Her curve is both her weapon and her shield. Let me explain. A woman's body, particularly the way she presents and moves with her curves, is often her first language. Before she ever speaks a word, before she opens up emotionally or intellectually, she's already said volumes with how she shows up. The sway in her hips, the posture she holds, the shape she accentuates or hides, this is body language at its most primal level. And she knows this, even if unconsciously. For some women, the curve becomes a weapon, not in a malicious or evil way, but as a means of command. She knows it has power. She knows it draws attention. She knows it turns heads, shifts conversations, and opens doors. And in a world that has often devalued her voice, disrespected her mind, and overlooked her presence, that curve becomes the most reliable way to regain control. She doesn't even need to speak. She just needs to enter the room. And yet, another wasted day for others. And sometimes the very same woman in a different season, that same curve becomes a shield. You have to understand, many women don't flaunt their bodies because they feel confident. They flaunt because they feel unseen in every other way, because they were taught their only source of power is in how they look, not in who they are. Because somewhere deep inside, they're trying to win back a sense of self-worth that the world stole from them. That curve becomes a barrier. It keeps people at a distance. It says, see me, but don't get too close. It seduces to avoid vulnerability. It invites attention to avoid connection. And the tragedy is, most men fall for it. Hook, line, and sinker. Because they see the curve, but not the pain behind it. They chase the body, but never ask what the body is covering. This is where your discernment must rise. If you're going to walk in power as a man, you cannot just respond to what's obvious. You must learn to see beneath. Behind every seductive glance might be a woman who feels invisible. Behind every confident strut might be a woman who's been violated and is now using her appearance as her armor. Behind every tight dress might be a plea for validation she never got from a father, a partner, or herself. So don't just ask, is she attractive? Ask, wasted day. What's her intention? Not to judge her, but to understand the terrain you're walking into, because a woman using her body as a weapon will test your ego. And a woman using it as a shield will test your emotional maturity. Now, here's where it gets even more real. How you respond for everything. If you become infatuated, she knows she controls you. If you become intimidated, she knows she can push you back. But if you remain grounded, present, calm, and unmoved, you shift the dynamic. Waste a day, you take her out of her performance. You signal that you are not here for the illusion, you're here for what's real. And when a man shows up like that, something extraordinary happens. A woman who's used her curves as her only defense starts to soften. Because for the first time, she's not being consumed. She's being seen. She's not being pursued for the body she's learned to leverage. She's being met for the persons she's hidden behind it. This kind of man doesn't fall into traps. He doesn't chase illusions. He doesn't let his biology override his discernment. And because of that, he walks into every interaction with clarity, not confusion, with vision, not reaction. But if you're not rooted in that, you will become a pawn in her performance. You will react to her seduction or retreat from her distance. And either way, you'll lose sight of who you are. And the moment you lose yourself trying to figure her out, you've already submitted your power. So how do you protect that power? You anchor yourself. You stop projecting your fantasy onto her body. You stop assuming confidence where there's insecurity. You stop assuming intimacy where there's performance. You start seeing her as a complex, layered being, not a prize and not a puzzle and not a pedestal. And that shift in perception, it changes everything, because now you're no longer controlled by her curve. You're in control of your frame. You're no longer chasing validation. You're offering presence. And a woman can feel the difference. She knows when she's dealing with a boy chasing a body or a man embodying his mission. Here's the bottom lining. Her curve is not the problem. Your reaction to it is the test. So the next time you feel drawn in by how she moves, pause. Ask yourself, is she using her curve to connect, to conquer, or to protect? And more importantly, are you strong enough to stay centered regardless? Because your masculinity isn't defined by what you chase. It's defined by what you refuse to give your power away to. Stand in that power. Her curve may be the invitation, but your awareness, that's what makes you unforgettable. Let's turn our focus to something most men don't even consider until it's too late. The psychological relationship between a woman and her own body, especially her curves. Because while we often speak about how men perceive a woman's body, rarely do we examine how she perceives it herself. And that right there is the deeper terrain. That's where the real power dynamic lives. And if you miss that, you'll never fully understand the woman behind the form. You see, a woman doesn't just have a body. She's been socialized through it. From a very young age, the world taught her that her body is a mirror, constantly reflecting back approval or rejection, value or shame, acceptance or judgment. Every curve has a story, every part has been labeled. Too much? Not enough. Too another way too visible, not visible enough. So when she walks into a room and feels eyes on her, she's not just seen, she's measured. That kind of socialization rewires her perception of herself. She learns that the body she inhabits is either a gateway or a barrier to love, success, and safety. So when she wears something that accentuates her body, or when she hides behind oversized clothing, both are acts of self-translation. She is communicating with the world through her physical form, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously, but always layered with meaning. Now, this is where the psychology becomes important. When a man fixates on her body with understanding the inner experience behind it, he reduces her not because he intends to, but because he's relating to a surface level projection rather than a full human being. And women can feel that immediately, deeply. And if that's all you see, if you only validate the physical and ignore the internal, then you'll never earn her trust. You'll never be let into her soul, because she will instinctively sense that you're relating to her body, not her being. And here's where it gets even more nuanced, Egg. The way a woman relates to her own body often determines the way she allows others to relate to it. If she sees her body as sacred, as powerful as hers, not a tool to manipulate or a trophy to display, then she moves with a quiet kind of authority. And if you approach that kind of woman with shallow energy, you'll be dismissed before you even know you failed. But if she's disconnected from her body, if it's a source of pain, insecurity, or trauma, then that will show up too. She might invite validation from men, but reject intimacy. She might appear confident, but collapse when she's truly seen. She might crave touch, fear, connection. These are not contradictions. They're the byproducts of years of unresolved emotional layers built around her physical self. So what does this mean for you as a man? It means if you want to engage with a woman beyond surface attraction, you must develop emotional intelligence. You must tune in, not just to how she looks, but to how she carries herself. Is her confidence authentic or performative? Is her comfort in her skin genuine or guarded? Is she presenting herself to attract admiration or to shield vulnerability? These are questions only a deeply aware man can ask. And the answers, they don't come from interrogation. They come from observation, patience. Because when a woman feels seen, not just looked at, something radical shifts in her. She no longer has to perform her femininity. She can just be in it. And that's when the real intimacy starts to unfold. That's when her walls begin to drop. That's when she stops needing to use her body as a mask and starts trusting you enough to reveal the heart it's been protecting. And understand this. Every woman wants to be desired, but only a few want to be objectified. There is a difference. One sees her as a whole, the other sees her as a part. One invites her deeper, the other wastes it, that leaves her fragmented. And when a man chooses to elevate his awareness, to meet her in the totality of her feminine presence, not just the allure of her curves, but the complexity of her being, he unlocks a level of connection that most men never even glimpse. So the next time you find yourself drawn to a woman's body, don't suppress that. Attraction is natural, but add depth to it. Look beyond the curve. Ask yourself, what is her relationship to herself? What does her energy tell me about her inner world? This doesn't make you less of a man. It makes you more, because it means your attraction is now anchored in awareness. Your desire is now directed by discernment, and your masculinity is no longer reactive. It's refined. Let's be clear, it's not wrong to appreciate beauty. But when your appreciation becomes your compass, you're lost. And when your masculinity hinges on how a woman makes you feel rather than who you choose to be, you've surrendered your power. So reclaim it. Reframe it. Here's another wasted days. What I want you to remember, a woman's body may catch your eye, but it's your depth that earns her trust. And the man who can hold space for both her curves and her complexities, he's the one she never forget Let's talk about something that slips right past the average man's awareness, but screams volumes in the language of psychology and human connection: touch. Specifically, how a woman uses touch or withholds it to express what she won't say out loud. Now, understand this: when a woman touches you, even subtly, it is never meaningless. Touch is one of the earliest forms of communication we learn as human beings, long before we master language. It's primal, it's intuitive, and for women, it's often intentional: a brush of the arm, a tap on the knee, lingering fingers during a handoff. These aren't just casual moments, they're messages. But here's the critical thing: when a woman is attracted to you, yet trying not to show it, touch becomes complicated. It's no longer just a gesture. It becomes a negotiation between her desire and her restraint. She might instinctively reach toward you, then pull back. She might find reasons to be near you, close in proximity, but not initiate anything that could be perceived as obvious. Why? Because she's battling within herself. She wants you to notice her interest, but she's terrified of losing her perceived power, her control, or worse, being rejected. So the question becomes, can you read her hesitation without misinterpreting it? Because this is where most men mess it up. They either overlook the signs completely, or they overreact, mistaking restrained attraction for full-blown invitation. And that's where you must become attuned. When a woman is attracted to you but doesn't want to admit it, her body betrays her in ways her words never will. Watch her body orientation. Does she angle herself toward you even when she's talking to someone else? Does she find subtle ways to be near you without crossing obvious boundaries? Does she play with her jewelry, adjust her hair, or fidget when you speak, little movements driven by nervous energy and self-consciousness? These are the tells. And what makes it more interesting is how inconsistent her behavior might be. One moment she's warm and engaging, and the next she pulls back or becomes aloof. Don't let this confuse you. What you're seeing isn't manipulation, it's conflict. A psychological push, pull rooted in attraction, vulnerability, and fear. She doesn't want to come off as easy. She doesn't want to give herself away too quickly. So instead of directly expressing interest, she tests the waters with micro signals. But let's go deeper. If a woman feels emotionally safe around you, even if she's trying to hide her feelings, her body will soften, her shoulders will drop, her breathing will slow, her voice will lower. Why? Because safety allows attraction to surface, even when her conscious mind is trying to suppress it. A woman in the presence of a man who makes her feel understood, grounded, and non-judged will start to let her guard down slowly, unconsciously. But surely, this is why your energy matters more than your words. You don't need to chase, or you don't need to prove your worth. You simply need to hold space, strong, grounded, calm space that gives her the freedom to drop the act she wears for the rest of the world. When you do that, she begins to show up not as a performance, but as herself. And that's when you'll start to notice her body language shifting from guarded to inviting, from sharp to fluid. That's when the walls start to fall. But this only happens if you're not rushing. If you can stay in your masculine center without needing confirmation, without pressuring her for a response, and without overanalyzing every movement, she will open. Slowly, subtly, authentically. And this is where your presence becomes your power. Because the truth is, most women aren't waiting for the perfect man. They're waiting for a man they can relax around. A man who sees the signals but doesn't exploit them. Who notices the tension but doesn't press, who makes her feel like she can be both mysterious and seen, guarded and safe. So next time you're with a woman and you sense she might be into you, but she's clearly trying to keep it under wraps, don't confront her. Don't challenge her. And definitely don't corner her with aggressive pursuit. Instead, meet her restraint with maturity. Lean into your intuition. Respect her pacing. Mirror her tone. And if she touches you gently, fleetingly, don't just react, observe, hold steady, let her lead the next moment. Because in doing so, you're not just earning her attention, you're earning her trust. And that, my friend, is where everything changes. So here's the truth to take with you. If a woman is hiding her attraction, it's not a game, it's a test of your awareness. The man who can recognize the signals without needing to chase them, the man who can feel her energy shift without getting emotional about it, the man who can invite her openness without forcing anything, that man becomes unforgettable, not because he's flashy or perfect, but because he's safe, present, and most importantly, aware.